So here we are in the Edward Rice and Woods on the banks of the Des Plaines River, about 25 miles north of Chicago. And this is a beautiful historic place, and it's so interesting that the maritime history of Chicago, why Chicago was one of the main maritime centres of the world, let alone America, was because of its location on the Great Lakes and also its access to the inland waterways. And just here where we are on the banks of the Des Plaines River, for 12,000 years Native Americans plied their trade in their birch bark canoes in this area. And 350 years ago, very famously, I've come to learn, one of the great voyages of discovery, Marquette and Jolliet, two French explorers, one a Jesuit priest, Marquette, extremely well educated, and Jolliet, also very well educated, initially was going to go into the religious order in some way, but became more of a man of the interior and an explorer. The two of them came from St Ignace in the upper peninsula of Michigan over to what is now Green Bay, where the Peninsula shipyards are near there, and then they made their way down through Wisconsin all the way to the Mississippi, where really very few, if any, white people had ever been before, any Europeans had ever been before, meeting Native American tribes that had never met Europeans before. And they went as far as Arkansas before turning around after being warned of hostile tribes and potentially the Spanish, who they thought could capture them. But this is the river, the Des Plaines River, and they caught this river further south when they were coming back up from Arkansas. They joined the Des Plaines and joined the Chicago River, and famously found the Chicago portage. And Jolliet, a visionary even at that time in 1673, remarked about how a canal could be built to connect the portage, recognizing the maritime significance of Chicago. And it was its connection with rivers like this, the main arteries of America, that made Chicago, just 25 miles south of here, into one of the greatest cities ever to be built, and certainly one of the great maritime cities of the last 150 years, a place that it still holds to this day, being a very busy port on the Great Lakes and connecting all the way to the transatlantic through the Atlantic through the St Lawrence Seaway and the Gulf of Mexico, down to New Orleans. So there's just some history for you. Remarkable to think that 12,000 years, for 12,000 years, Native Americans were in this area, and this area was preserved by the descendants of Daniel Wright, who was the first European to live in this area in about the 1830s, 1840s, when it looked very much like this. And his family, his descendants, owned this land, and it was gifted to the area to preserve and not be built on. So this is how it used to look.